Lisa Ann, you're up next. Is there anything I left out?
No, this has been great. Thank you so much, Glenna. Thank
Okay,
everybody for being here.
perfect.
So I'm going to take over the screen sharing.
Oh,
So
look
just
at all the beautiful faces. Now I get
say
to
hi.
see her slides. Wave, everybody. Come on. Tell
Good
us
to
you're here.
see
I
you
mean, what
all.
is a wave in Zoom? I don't know what that is, but it's awesome.
So I'm going to share my screen. So just give me a moment here. You should be seeing my screen, and let me put it in presentation mode. All right. So can you see the big screen there? Looking good?
We can.
All right. Thank you so much. Okay. So this, as many of you know, at WCS, we've been exploring how to bring more diversity to climate impact since we were founded in 2011, which is almost 10 years ago. And this year, the need for that diversity is more evident than ever, and it's a big, nuanced challenge. So as a communications professional, first and foremost, I've been focused on something that's always bothered me, and that's this prevailing problem within the environmental movement generally, in my opinion, and also within climate advocacy, and now with COVID-19, and that is, my opinion, bad messaging. So if we're going to overcome these challenges and bring more people into the fold, then we need to focus on the messaging, make it more universal, but also, more importantly, make it personal. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Let me see if I can advance my slide. I don't know if it's letting me advance my slide. Hold on. Oh dear. Okay. That's a challenge. There we go. Okay. So it's not enough to expect people to want to make changes in their lives, their businesses, or for governments to make these big changes just because it's, quote, the right thing to do, okay? These are big challenges, they're universal challenges, but the reasons that people become active are not. And this is even evident with women in clean tech and sustainability. When I founded the organization in 2011, it was to give people of all genders a community of support and inspiration that they could draw from when they pursued their careers. What we've learned in the past almost 10 years is that it's not just one thing that has compelled the 4,500 people to join our community internationally. It's a variety of different reasons. As different as the people themselves. Like, some people are looking for a job. Some people are looking to make a career change. Maybe people are bored at work and they want to give back. Some people might feel lonely being the only female at a startup, or they might feel marginalized among their coworkers. Whatever the reason is, women in clean tech and sustainability brings them something where they can feel like they're a part of something larger. And if I could adjust my slide, that would be even better. There we go. Okay, so when it comes to climate change, we really only have 10 years to significantly reduce the impacts of CO2. If we're going to do that in a meaningful way, we're going to reverse those effects and do it at a reasonable cost. We're warming the planet, and scientists have called it that we're going through a sixth mass extinction. It's been aptly named the Anthropocene extinction, meaning it's caused by humanity. 40% of species are expected to go extinct. We might only have 70 more harvests before topsoil is completely depleted if we don't make changes. And some emperor penguins in Antarctica haven't produced offspring in 4 years. So expecting people to come up with their own reasonings for joining the climate movement or wearing masks during this pandemic is not going to be effective enough, and it's not going to be fast enough. What we need is people to stop ignoring the warning signs and stop avoiding making these tough choices. So, but when you have people avoiding and ignoring, that's when you get people like Greta Thunberg. If you think that one person can't make a difference, then you are not paying attention. This remarkable young woman has done more for the climate movement than anyone else in recent history. She's refused to go along with the charade. She unapologetically speaks truth to power, and she is the voice we have so desperately needed. And thank the gods that she has had this effect on humanity. Last year, millions of students were striking every day on Friday. Sorry, they were striking every Friday. The Extinction Rebellion was making waves, and 7.6 million people struck for climate in September. Jane Fonda even moved to DC and got her 80-year-old ass arrested with her celebrity friends. Now that might seem trivial to some of you, but she was raising awareness in popular culture like no one else was able to do. And minds were changing last year. All of these numbers are from last year. She had numbers trending upwards, but we're not moving fast enough. Governments are still ignoring our demands. And why? Well, with COVID, they've got a bigger fire to put out first before they can address the larger fire with climate change, more immediate fire and the larger fire of climate change. But regardless of these numbers, what we've been able to achieve, these numbers with what I consider to be called trickle-down messaging. So basically, that's what happens when you tell people that they should want to save the planet, but you leave it up to them to figure out why and how. And just like trickle-down economics, the standard save the planet message doesn't trickle down to the average person. It doesn't work. They're too busy, they're too stressed out, and they're already confused. And then in 2019, we have the pandemic. So what's fascinating to me about this pandemic is that it's revealed to people in a very concrete way how rapid change is possible. Those same governments that claimed that there wasn't money to spend on climate mitigation found money for stimulus. They claimed that fighting climate change was going to wreck the economy, but they were willing to do that to protect people around COVID-19. We saw swift changes in behavior related to people wearing masks and sheltering in place in March. Now, granted, there's a minority that still refuse to wear masks because they've been taken in by some propaganda. But for the most part, people understand their collective actions benefit everyone in the long run. Likewise, the marches related to the George Floyd protests have shown people that you can enact rapid change between the police and the communities that they serve. And then companies all over the country have been working to figure out how they can address diversity, equity, and inclusion in their own spheres of influence. And actually, I think there's some interesting commonalities between COVID and climate change. They're both present a severe danger to our way of life and the economies around the world. Both are victims of propaganda and attacks on science. Both have become inappropriately political, in my opinion. And most importantly, we've witnessed people shifting their positions and behavior once they or someone close to them becomes affected. Because when it becomes personal, it becomes real, it becomes tangible. Something also interesting to note about these two big problems in our world today is that they're both very emotional topics. And I actually think that's our biggest asset, because emotions are a motivating factor for getting people into action. And that's what we're going to talk about today. That's what this whole workshop's about. If we want more diversity in climate action, if we want more people wearing masks, we need more people involved overall, which means we need people to change their minds. We need them to be willing to change their minds. And there's basically two types of people that fail to engage in action on these topics. I call them avoiders and deniers. And the message that our global house is on fire, so you should get off your ass and do something about it, is not enough to inspire these types of people into action. Instead, we need to learn more about them and their lives and understand why they have yet to be in action. Why are they on the sidelines? What's motivating them to stay there? So I recommend we start with the avoiders because they're considered the quote reasonable middle, and they're honestly people who are confused and might lack direction and might have been taken in by propaganda, and they're going to be the most direct path to making a difference. So to do this as advocates, or more importantly, as influencers, we want to step out of our comfort zones and talk to these people who actually might not want to talk about this topic, but it's really important that we have these conversations. We have to be willing to risk our relationships, our egos, maybe even our jobs, to talk one-on-one with people in the hopes of influencing them to stand with us. If enough of us were to do this in our own spheres of influence, we could build up a wave that the Greta effect started into a tsunami. I mean, if there's 50 people on this call and each of us had one conversation with an avoider a week, That would be 2,600 conversations a year, and that's just the people on this call. Imagine what change we could have if the broader clean tech community, the broader healthcare community was advocating for these problems and having these tough conversations with people on a regular basis. So there's a couple of common motivators for change. The uncertainty myth is the foundation of most propaganda, especially with these two problems that we're facing today. As an example, the idea that climate change is still a theory, and until we're 100% sure that it's caused by human activity, we shouldn't waste our time and money doing anything about it. Or that masks don't really work, and there's conflicting evidence on if masks work. Okay, fine. The way to counter this argument is to suggest that people be willing to change their minds based on new evidence. And if someone tells you that they're not interested in seeing new evidence, then you get curious about why that is, and you dig deeper until you can figure out what's motivating their stance. The second most common cause of conversion is personal experience, either with a natural disaster or, in the case of COVID, when someone close to them contracts or worse, dies of the virus. This firsthand experience makes the problem more tangible to their world, and it makes it emotional. And when people get emotional, they take action. Finally, the third most common reason people convert is a feeling of responsibility to their children and grandchildren. Greta Thunberg is an excellent example of this. For many people, their children and grandchildren are their legacy. And what is the future that they're leaving them if they don't do anything about climate change today? What future will these kids lead and live if we send them back to school too soon and they contract COVID and they have lifelong implications, complications from the virus? These are the questions that people ask themselves. And when they recognize that they are more motivated to protect their children than to maintain an avoider stance or a denier stance, then we can move them into the light. So this is the most important slide of my talk, and this is a slide we'll be sharing later as well during the workshop portion of this event. So to really connect people to the desire to change the world or make an impact to slowing the spread of COVID, you have to connect them to something deeply impersonal that's being impacted. The more personal their drive, the more motivated they'll be to take action. So this is the simple framework. First, stand in curiosity. So that means get on their map, understand where they're coming from. Listen deeply. Get clear on their desires, what concerns them, what matters to them. Then determine their motivational stance. Some people are what we call toward people, and that is they move toward problems. Other people are away from people. They try to avoid them, okay? And if you're talking to an avoider or denier, you're typically talking to someone who's in an away from stance. The next one is understanding and informing. So this is understand what's driving their choices and why. And if you don't understand, get curious and stay in curiosity until you can get down to figuring out what makes them tick. Then connect the values that they're holding, which you've discovered in this conversation, to your preferred action. So whether it's climate or COVID, wearing a mask, whatever the case might be, you're going to take what you've learned motivates them and connect that to the action that you're attempting to influence them to take. Next, adjust your message. So in these conversations, you're getting a lot of information from the person you're talking to. Adjust your message accordingly to ensure that you continue to be on their map. And also be patient, okay? This converting someone into action might not take one conversation. It might take several conversations. It might take you being casually curious over time. But the whole point here is to allow people to come to their own conclusions. We're not talking about advocacy here in the normal sense. We're not telling people that they should think a certain way. We're not telling them that they're wrong and that we're right. We're helping them to draw these conclusions for themselves. And when you do that, those conclusions stick and those people change their activity. Also, stay calm and stay curious. In these conversations, people might get defensive. They might attack you as a person. They might attempt to derail the conversation. That's okay, but don't let yourself get taken in. Don't get emotional about it. Stay calm, stay neutral, and stay curious. And this stuff works. So it's very possible to bring people into the fold, no matter how large of a denier they were. And here's some examples for climate. NASA Director Jim Bredenstein was a denier when he was in Congress. He's from Oklahoma. But it only took a few weeks at NASA, learning from the scientists there, before he changed his mind. Tomas Regalado was the mayor of Miami when Hurricane Irma hit. And at the end of his administration, he was advocating for a $400 million bond to protect the city from sea level rise. Frank Luntz is the person we get a chance to thank for this whole uncertainty myth related to climate change. That's 20 years ago he came up with that, because he's a communications consultant for the Republican Party. Well, climate change is a hot topic for him ever since his Southern California home was destroyed in a wildfire. And now he's working with Democrats to change how they communicate climate change to conservatives. And his recommendation is to talk about it as pollution. So these are just some examples. The whole point is, what we're doing here is making these problems personal. And when you make things personal, they are also most universal. And though this is the most important work that we could be doing right now, winning the hearts and minds by taking the time to listen to people's perspectives and connect their personal motivations with the larger goal of protecting humanity from the greatest threats of our day. It's only when we've converted enough people into this movement that we're going to see governments breaking the shackles of industry and following the will of the people. So I challenge each of you to go back to your worlds and have one frank conversation with someone in your life who's not taking action on climate, or who's not wearing a mask, or not taking the pandemic seriously. And if we all are able to do this, we will see change faster than the organic growth that we're seeing today. Because when you make climate change or stopping the spread of COVID-19 personal, it's not about saving the planet. It's about saving ourselves. And that's how you make it personal, and that's how you enact change. Thank you.
Okay, so let's all take a deep breath. Everybody take a deep breath, because this is a lot to take in. We're all here together in this virtual room, and we are all committed to making a difference. And I want you to just be really grateful for your own selves that you're willing to do that. And I am in my this moment grateful to Lisa Ann for helping us to approach this from a really well thought out way, with a process and a strategy that we can adopt so that we personally can make a difference with those around us. And that's a big vision. Even if it's one-on-one, it's a big vision. So congratulate yourselves for being here. So we are now going to move into our workshop section, where you're going to get an opportunity to practice the strategy that she laid out. We're going to share that page on the chat prior to our breakout session. Please make sure that in your breakout session you have that handy if you would like. Lisa Ann, can you walk us through how you would like these breakout sessions to go?
Sure. So I'm sharing the document, that one slide, in the chat, so everybody should be able to click on it and save it to their computer. And then you can reference this as you're doing the workshop portion of this event. And thank you to all of you in the chat for your compliments on the talk. I really appreciate that. So we're going to break out into teams of 2, and one person, so person A and person B. So start out with person A being an avoider, and just come up with an idea of why you're an avoider. And it can be about climate, it can be about COVID, whatever you prefer. Okay, this is all role playing. Maybe you have someone in your life that you want to emulate for that. That's fine too. Person B, you're going to be the influencer. Remember, we're not advocates. We're not telling people how to think. We're not telling them they're wrong. We're attempting to influence them towards the desired action that we're looking for them to take. So you'll have about 10 minutes. The breakout's going to be 20 minutes. You'll have about 10 minutes to role play that conversation, and then we'll switch.
Okay, excellent. And as we are zoomed into our sessions, thank you to the team behind us. There's a very vibrant team from Women in Clean Tech and Sustainability who are helping us today. If you have any questions, please put a question in the chat.
Thank you, Glenna. And I understand that there's some people that maybe can't do the workshop portion because they're sort of toggling between different meetings and work and that kind of thing. So if that's the case and you get put into a room and the person can't do the workshop with you, just jump back into the lobby with the rest of us and we'll figure it out for you.
Okay, so Lisa Ann, we want to do a little bit of a share, yes?
Yeah, please. I'd love to hear what the role playing was like for people.
Okay, so we're getting everybody back in. Do we have everybody back in? Carolyn? Carolyn, the Zoom wizardress.
I think so. In theory, they'll come back in 4 seconds.
Okay, 4 seconds.
Something like that, yeah.
Welcome back, ladies.
Right.
Welcome back. So raise your hand if you got to do both the influencer and the denier roles. Everybody got to do both roles? Okay. Okay, then raise your hand if you were an influencer. How many influencers did we have? Okay. How many deniers? Okay. I don't know about you all, but I had a hard time with the denier role. Okay, so we're going to just do a quick sharing. Who is going to help me with unmuting?
I think anyone can take themselves off mute, hopefully.
Okay.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Anna?
Okay, so do we have a volunteer to do a quick recap of their experience with this process? Okay, I'm gonna pick on somebody. Maxine, you were with me.
Yeah, I was gonna say I can go. Yeah, I say the quick recap is that we both had trouble being the denier. It was a lot easier to obviously talk about something you're passionate about and be the influencer. But it was good being the denier so you can kind of put yourself in that mindset and think as an influencer what you would need to say in order to kind of maybe change their mindset. So it's always good to kind of be in the shoes of who you're trying to influence as well.
Notice I'm not asking if I changed her mind.
I don't know, Glenna, you're persuasive.
Yeah.
Okay, Natalie, what was your experience?
Unfortunately, I had to jump off, so I was
okay.
Part of the workshop.
Rishma, Rishma raised her hand at one point.
There, it's all right. We're glad you're back. Who else was there? Who else was on a breakout session? Reshma?
Okay, so we had a little bit of a role play. I played the denier, and I put on the best American accent I could.
This is America.
This is America. And I always thought I don't have an Indian accent, but apparently I do. So, so I play the denier, saying that, you know, for me, all I care about is how do I get my 1,000 factory workers, you know, food on the table, preserve their mining jobs. And I love fracking. And because solar, I don't get to watch TV at night. With fracking, I know it's resilient electricity and I can get gas and stuff at night. So my partner had a pretty tough time trying to convince me. Until we talked about opening up global markets for my renewable energy company and selling it to people abroad and creating jobs in energy efficiency, which is a very labor intensive sector. So that's kind of what we talked about.
Excellent. All right. Perfect.
I love that.
So, yeah.
I was just going to say,
go ahead. Sorry, Sarah, go ahead.
Alyssa and I had this really good conversation. Alyssa, can you share your I was the negative one.
The avoider.
Yeah, the avoider.
Yes.
And Alyssa had some pretty hard topics, things that she has experienced. So Alyssa, can you share just quickly with the group?
Sure. Hi, can you guys hear me? So Sarah was my partner and she was the avoider. So her argument was, why should I worry about, issues related to climate change and the environment, because she has to worry about the here and now. And the here and now is related to racial discrimination or other forms of oppression or violence. So that's like an immediate need, right? That's like an immediate, everyday thing for many people. So climate change and the environment is like 20 steps away from that. It's not in your face. It's not, something that needs to be addressed in the immediate term when there's other issues of social justice that are coming up for people in society. So as the persuader, I was sort of my role was, well, how can I convince somebody otherwise, right? And so I think my first answer, right, Sarah, was, well, gosh, I don't want to. I'm not sure I am going to convince you otherwise, because those issues are, so immediate and so real and very pervasive in everyday life for people. So my first answer was, well, I kind of understand why climate change is maybe not, the first thing on your mind, or something that you want to address immediately. But Sarah was able, and we had such a great talk. She was able to, really, really help me sort of turn that narrative around and talk about, first of all, yes, that, me as the persuader, I can identify somewhat with Sarah because I have a biracial family. So I've seen some of the things that she talked about to me. But, after conveying my, my understanding and empathy, she helped me sort of, and gave me some ideas on how to really frame the conversation. And there's something she said that really stuck out in my mind, which is, sometimes I get onto a moral argument, which is probably not a good platform ever, when you're talking to people and you're trying to persuade them. But she said something about your ancestors and how, this planet has taken care of our ancestors. And then, we both have 10-year-old boys. And so, we want this planet and the earth to be able to take care of us and our grandkids and our great grandkids and for future generations, and how important it is to model really good behavior for our children, whether it's recycling or just generally standing up for and educating ourselves about climate change. So we really conflated issues of social justice and climate change. So it was a really interesting.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
And you made it personal, which was one of Lisa Ann's really core tenets, that we need to make this personal, not in a confrontational way, but in a heart space way, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to do a second breakout. Is that correct? WCS event team members, yes? Okay, so everyone's gonna get another chance to role play. This is a really spectacular opportunity because we don't usually take this format, so this is awesome. All right, so Carolyn, are you Zooming us?
So everyone knows people are coming back in under 60 seconds.
Okay. Thank you. And facts can also be paralyzing for people too. What we know from research is that if you try to combine facts with emotions, you don't get any further with someone than if you were to just talk about facts themselves. But if you focus solely on emotions and what personally motivates someone and don't worry about the facts, you'll get further.
Hi, Tara. Welcome back. Hi, Melanie.
Hey, Melanie.
Hi, Cameron.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Cameron, I'm sorry our breakout room didn't work. I kept saying, are you on mute? Are you on mute? Unmute yourself.
Sorry, I was trying to do another meeting at the same time. So I was trying to lurk in the background. I apologize.
No worries, but now I invite you to come to something else so that I can be in a breakout room with you.
Sounds good.
I feel like I have left, then I've missed out.
That's fair.
Okay, do I have a deal?
You have a deal.
Okay, perfect. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. We're going to do a quick summary, and then we're going to visit. In a minute, we'll ask Leah to put the slides so we can visit the schedule moving forward, so you're fully acclimated as to the virtual membership option and the upcoming events. Two things that you want to be aware of. And I just want to say personally for myself that I recognize that this framework that we now have up on the screen, which is awesome, is truly wonderful and powerful to bridge conversations that we don't understand the other side's perspective. And in the day and time when we want people to understand, we want to understand parts of our world that we don't necessarily walk in their shoes, I think that this is an incredibly powerful opportunity. And I would like to go back to Lisa Ann for a minute here and have her articulate how we could use this structure maybe in some of the other conversations, climate change and social equity. And, I'm going to put you on the spot, Miss Lisa Ann.
Okay.
How can we take this structure and really focus on it so that we can use it in other places on the planet?
Yeah, I mean, this structure is universal. This is how you can have a conversation with someone about anything, right? Whether it's politics or COVID or climate or social justice or getting your kid to go to bed on time, like whatever the case might be, the way you can influence people is by understanding where they're coming from and connecting their personal motivations with the action that you're looking for them to have. And so I see this as a universal technique, and you don't necessarily have to sit the person down and be like, we need to talk, so let me get curious about you. Like, you could just be curious in general conversation with someone and they won't even know that you're enacting this process or system, but you know it, and you can very casually be curious, connect things together, and very organically start to open the doors for them to change their minds and influence them. And so in my opinion, you're right. You can use this for anything, like politics, whatever the case might be.
Do we have any questions for Lisa Ann? We've got a couple more minutes before we start to wrap up. Do we have a burning question? Just unmute yourself and ask. Okay, I'll ask it then. What have been some of the biggest hurdles that you've seen for people having these conversations related to climate using this system?
I think the feedback that I've gotten when I've given this talk before, when I was in the Netherlands, it was a room of 200 people. So I did the 200 person math on one conversation a week, a year. And then I challenged everybody to have that conversation. I saw wide eyes. And so the feedback I received from a few people was just that they just were too, they didn't feel confident in having these kinds of conversations. They felt shy about it, or they were not willing to risk any of their relationships to attempt to convert someone to a different way of thinking. And my response to them, I mean, it might sound harsh, but my response to them was like, well, if you believe that climate's a problem, then I think that we need to be doing everything we possibly can about it. And yes, a lot of us work in this industry, and we're putting our careers towards making the world a better place, related to improving the environment and making a better future for everyone related to climate change. But your job doesn't stop there. And if we're really serious about saving the planet, saving humanity from the worst impacts of climate change, then we have to be willing to sacrifice parts of our lives to have these tough conversations. And if we're not willing to do that, then you got to start with yourself and understand, why aren't you willing to do that? What is your personal motivation for keeping you out of action from having conversations like this?
Well, I would just want to say on behalf of all of us, thank you, Lisa Ann, for dedicating your considerable talent to something that actually benefits all of us by creating this organization, and for Sarah here, who's one of the early creators. Sarah, would you like to just jump in here for a minute and talk about virtual memberships?
You know I do. Hey ladies, we have launched our virtual membership, and anybody that's on the call today, if you paid to be on this call and you want to become a new member, we will reimburse you for today's ticket. We are expanding from coast to coast. Our goal is to pursue international waters, which we've already treaded a bit. And so today, I hope you really enjoyed yourself. We want to continue to build these bridges and have these tough conversations. And we want you to be able to be a part of our network and part of our community of being influencers. So I'm so excited to meet you influencing ladies, and hopefully you can come help us with the conversion of one person a week. And we're just excited to have you. And please just look us up if you have any questions. I did post my LinkedIn. You have any questions about membership or corporate membership? If you have a company and you're like, oh, maybe my company can pay. Several of us have had our companies pay to be a virtual member or to become a corporate member. So we just thank you so much for being on this call with us and participating. And like I said, welcome. Have a good day.
Awesome. And could we throw up the events real quick, the event schedule real quick? All right, ladies, we will see you on August 6th. All right, sign up
Yes.
now. Go to the website, sign up now. Thank you, Lisa Ann. Thank you, the Women in Clean Tech Events group, Carolyn and Leah. Tara, thank you for being here. Melanie, I think we've got, if I haven't mentioned you, thank you for being here. And ladies, have a great evening.
And I'm going to do a quick plug. If anyone's interested in volunteering for a future event, we always need tons of volunteers to help us out at events, but also to help run WCS Run. We have tons of committee positions open as well. It's a fantastic way to get more involved in the community and build your network and build some new skills. So reach out at volunteer@womencleantech.org. I'm going to post that in the meeting chat right now if anyone else is interested.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And Lisa Ann, do you have a parting word?
My parting word is that it might seem scary to have these kinds of conversations, but honestly, when you use this framework, it makes it very easy. And so it may feel scary, but if you use the framework, it's not scary at all. It's just, you're just having a general conversation. You're just being genuinely curious, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Excellent.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.